The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Oh, yes. Yes. The Bhoycie boss is back. And we had what I would call a slobber knocker of a show yesterday. Arguably the best in Bhoycie boss history. A huge thank you once again to Paul McFarlane, to Terry Robb, and of course to Paul McGinley for what was a 2-hour, 17-minute extravaganza celebrating Glasgow Celtic champions. Ole. Now tonight, Monday Club resumes. As you can see, there's a third face to the party. This is because we did a bit of fucking about the weekend because of a work crew that I helped organise. That I completely messed up, that counteracted everything I'd planned for the bus. So we've got Conor Carr rejoining us tonight. Brilliant to see you, Conor. How are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Very well, mate. Brilliant to have you back on. I know circumstances changed, but it's worked out all right. It's worked out all right in the sense that how do we follow though yesterday's show? Jonathan, it's going to go down in history as a landmark moment in Bhoycie bus history. People cannot stop messaging saying, I've had a message of a guy called Matthew D on Twitter. He is a brilliant young Celtic fan. He's only must be like 20 years old. So he says he thinks it's one of the best podcasts he's ever watched in his life, Jonathan. And he's not saying that lightly. I know. So it's big shoes to fill today, but I've got two guys alongside me that I know can drive this bus as well as anyone. Monday Club always gets a bit of notoriety, Jonathan. We tend to get the big views, the four-figure numbers, mate. This is what we do. Conor Carr's only going to add to that. And as always, we wouldn't be able to get these sort of numbers watching the bus if it weren't for having guys like fanboyfootball.com still sponsoring us to the end of this month, providing us with merchandise like t-shirts that have been bought off the shelf like you wouldn't believe. It also wouldn't work if people didn't hit the like button. Don't hit the subscribe button. Jonathan, now an optional button is the join button. You can become a Bhoycie Bus member. Your name appears in green on a StreamYard wee thing. You get a wee symbol beside your name, and all it costs is $1.99 a month. $1.99 a month. You have to do that for just one podcast on Patreon. Mandatory to hear Graham Spears talk shite. You know what I mean? For example, I mean, right now we're saying it's optional. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. That's all good. The content will always be free. The support for the channel, though, means the world because it does help us keep evolving. Enough of that, though, Jonathan. We are right now, and I'm coming to you first, as always on a Monday. We are sitting right now champions again, Jonathan. How has it all came about? How have Celtic went from the wounded animal, Jonathan, that they were in the summer, the fractured club, the club that had no relationship between fans, board, coaches, the law, everyone was thrown under a bus, not the Bhoycie bus. And yet suddenly, Jonathan, since December, the Bhoycie bus rolls in, a wave of positivity arises as Celtic go unbeaten in the league since the Bhoycie bus ever began, which are just obviously coincidental. We're not going to take any credit for that. But the wave of positivity, Jonathan, considering where we are last summer, now we can officially say we are champions. I know they'll say you can't officially say it, but we can. We are officially champions of Scotland again. It only took 1 year, mate.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable turnaround. It's quite something to really think of as to what Mr. Postecoglou has done. Ange has paid dividends in the end. And you know something, Russell? I think he's been watching the bus a little bit. And you go back to his interview at the weekend. You know, he was talking about race lines and about whether you could stumble your way through the line or whether you could charge through it at a pace. And I'm pretty sure we had this exact conversation a couple of weeks ago. And it's not the first time Ange seems to be pulling comments, shall we say, from this podcast. Do you think we've got the Celtic manager as a passenger?
Oh, I don't know, mate. I don't know. I mean, to put it this way, only Ange Postecoglou has a deeper voice to me in Celtic media right now, Jonathan. I mean, fan media. I don't even mean media. That was tongue-in-cheek. But yes, only Ange could come on here, Jonathan, and show me what a lower octave means. And I think on Ange, all right, mate. You know, he's deeper voice than me, mate. Conor, will come to you. That we all know this was not what we foreseen at the start of the season. There was a lot of excitement going on, maybe. And, you know, I think some of it misplaced at times. People didn't actually know what they were talking about. They were just desperate for the new manager to be, you know, the answer to Jesus Christ. But it actually turns out he has been. The contribution Ange Postecoglou has made in this team, Conor, is frightening. We're champions again. Ole, ole.
Yeah, it's just it's defies expectations at all levels, really, just because I think that kind of adds to why it feels so good this year, because we were so desperate, because like we had it so good for so long, and then it all just came crashing down, and like just one mess after the other for a full season. Just it was horrible, and then along comes this guy. We know next to nothing about him. We're like, this could end up, you know. End up with egg in our face here. This could end up being an absolute nightmare, but he's stepped up and he's proved absolutely everybody wrong, proved me wrong. I mean, I didn't have my doubts about him, but I was a bit like, let's just see where this goes. I'm not going to get carried away just yet. And then I think it's just I've never seen a Celtic manager get as much backing from the fan base as I have with Ange Postecoglou, and it was crazy. Because, you know, I've not seen a manager get like all these like edits and merchandise and things like that, and it's crazy. And people are his book's selling it like absolute hotcakes. The one, you know, the one that came out a few years ago about his time in Australia.
Can't buy it.
Can't get it anywhere, and it's crazy because I mean I'm desperate to read it now as well myself, because every time he speaks, every time he opens his mouth, you just want to listen.
Yep. I think you're absolutely right to talk about that, the sellable value of a manager, Jonathan, because at the end of the day, both me and you are owners of a Celtic knitted jumper. You know, the zippy that he wears it undone with the Celtic tie. We and you both have that, mate. That is unheard of. I mean, I never cut about wanting to look like Neil Lennon last year. Do you know what I mean? I never had Martin O'Neill's rugby shirt on at any point, Jonathan. And he was my favourite manager in the world. But yeah, Ange seems to have this crazy draw about him. He makes anything cool. And like he says, he goes, you know, it was just a jumper. I just found it, mate. You know what I mean? Just like, well, I'll just fire that on because the wife wasn't in the house at the time. He goes, and she'd probably kill me for wearing a jumper. He goes, I'll just wear a jumper. It becomes iconic when it's Postecoglou. How early was it able to see how much of a connection he was making with us? Because I think Conor raises a great point there, because he's talking about the marketability of Postecoglou. I look back to the Celtic Christmas advert, Jonathan, as a great example. We were 7 points, in fact, I think, behind when that came out. 7 points behind in a title running, and yet the loving for that video and the vibes it brought. It was like, literally Ange can do no wrong here. It's wild. He has surpassed my expectations massively. My hands are up in the air. I didn't see this coming. No, I didn't. And I made good arguments, I felt, at the time for that. But now you need to move on. You just look at it, you just admire it. You just say, Jonathan, do you know what? This is one heck of a job to do, considering the influx of players, the transitional season it is in terms of the whole mentality and style of football changing completely, considering the lack of support in terms of his own background team, no head of recruitment. He's done it all on his Todd. And the unification, Terry Robb was talking about this yesterday, and I stand by this. He is spot on, Jonathan, when he says, how has he got everyone back on side? You know, the board and the fans were so split last year, Jonathan. He's brought all that together. He's glued everything together. Maybe he's put a couple of patches on it for, the interim right now. And if he ain't backed in the summer properly, trust me, they could be busting at the seams very quickly. But what I would say is, not only has he managed to put a team in the park we all identify with, we talked about this yesterday as well, how many players have their own individual song now, Jonathan? Everyone's identifying with this team individually, as a collective. The manager's managed to restore belief from the fans in the football club again, which I think were so far down the line. This is an unbelievable job, not just the winning football matches side of it. And incidentally, we're on a 30-game SPFL unbeaten run at this stage as well. But see, when you actually join all the dots, Jonathan, and you try and process how big a job this was, how many tasks that maybe weren't even in his remit to solve that he has solved, it is beyond belief, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, I think you go back to the start of the season and everyone was kind of like, Ange, who on earth is this? Everyone was kind of thinking this must be a wind-up. There's no way this guy's going to be getting the job. I remember seeing it when the bookies started putting up odds, and after Eddie Howe didn't get the job, you're kind of like, Christ, who the hell are we going to end up getting? You were kind of thinking probably the obvious choice was going to be somebody like a Lampard or something along those lines was probably what you were looking at potentially. And then you see this name come from out of nowhere. And it would have been very easy for Celtic fans to have turned on him quite quickly, particularly with how poor the results were at the start and off the back of such a dreadful season the year before, and the fact the board just didn't look like they were really interested at all for large spells, even during the summer last year. And I'm sure people would probably argue they maybe still aren't as interested as they should be. I'm sure that'll be a talking point that we can possibly look at. But you know, in terms of what Postecoglou has done, is I think Celtic fans like an underdog, Russell. I think they like the fact that they can get behind someone who's maybe being written off early. And I think there were so many, particularly of our enemies and the Scottish media in particular, that were not even willing to give him an opportunity whatsoever. That kind of meant, yes, whilst we had our reservations, when we seen him getting hounded as much by people who really didn't know anything more about him than we did, I think that almost brought a bit more of a unity. And then, you know, you see the early games, and okay, the results weren't there right at the start of the season, but you could kind of see he was trying to build something. And even in the early, I remember the qualifiers, and to be honest, if he had this defence sorted, he'd have probably been okay. I mean, if Barkas could bloody catch a ball, he'd have probably got through the first leg. Of that European.
You need to look it back at, and we're going to talk about Bitton later, the poke in the eye incident, Jonathan.
Oh, that's
absolute Celtic suicide. Celtic suicide out with Ange's control, and we will talk about that in more depth later because I've got interesting thoughts on that. But I'm glad you're highlighting these things. I'm going to push back on you a wee bit, Jonathan. I'm going to say I didn't see what he was trying to do initially. I maybe had blinkers on, and maybe I was raw from the season before. I think with the reflection, I can maybe take a wee bit on the chin there as well and go, do you know what? You were raw, you were reeling, and you felt the board had given you such a lack of faith in them that it took them 5 months to suss Eddie Howe's not actually coming. I just thought, why would they suddenly be making a modern, forward-thinking approach? They've obviously just been pitched this name and they need to have someone in. I had no faith, Jonathan, that this was going to be the appointment it's turned out to be. Not really personal against Ange. I did check his record. I don't think trophy leading actually fits with his record in 26 years of management. If I'm totally honest, I still stand by that. But what I would say is, it was never personal against Ange Postecoglou. I just thought, why would this board suddenly be going, oh, actually, we're now, we're what's the word I'm looking for? You know, we're creative in our appointments. You know, we're innovative in what we think and do. I mean, you know, the last appointment was Neil Lennon in the showers. 5 months to get Eddie Howe, couldn't get it over the line. This to me just didn't bode well for whoever it was that next got the job. And initially, Jonathan was seeing a 50% record in the league after 6 games. The worst start they were calling it since Joe Venglos's season at Celtic, which is what, 23, 24 years before. We're also looking at it from a point of view in Europe. I remember I put a photo on Twitter that went, you know, viral. I don't mean like crazy, do you know what I mean? But maybe go like 500 likes. And it was Montgomery and Ralston in the centre circle. And Celtic don't even have the ball. And I'm like, what is he actually trying to do here? And I do think I was maybe, well, in fact, I definitely was, giving him a shorter leash than what I should have been in terms of, you know, the guys came in here, let him do his thing. We knew it was going to be different. I also didn't like Jonathan a lot of the narratives that were coming through. I felt the Australian media and fan media was completely biased. They're patriotic. I get that. But I think they were given much in terms of balance. What's his downside? You aren't really getting any. And then you had the Japanese guy, you know, Dan, who I like to slag off on this, that Dan Olovich, who was saying, oh, honestly, I'd rather draw 4-4 than win 1-0. I mean, the alarm bells are ringing. This is the guy who's just covered that league. And I'm sitting there going, well, I'm sorry, that's not going to work either. Again, Jonathan, with the benefit of hindsight, we can all look back and laugh. You seem to think, though, differently than me. You think you could see the early signs of progress right from day one.
I think when you're looking at the European qualifiers, I think you could see what he was trying to do, certainly in an attacking sense, that he was trying to get the team playing that sort of fast, quick style of football. Obviously, it took him a bit of time to obviously get the right players in that were going to influence that. But I certainly took a lot of heart, I think, middle to front in the qualifiers. I even thought in, you know, the players he was dealt with, you know, he was dealt with an absolutely shocking hand for those qualifiers. Probably the worst prepared Celtic have been going into European qualifiers in a long, long time.
And that's saying something.
I know. I think that's probably the worst I've seen them, to be honest, going into qualifiers, and that is saying something because Celtic notoriously are bad. But I mean, he's having to play kids. So Dane Murray, I think, was playing centre half in some of the games. You had Montgomery playing left back, remember, as well. There was all sorts of things all over the place with Celtic in the summer. But I always kind of felt middle to front. I kind of felt he could get things going in that sort of area of the pitch. I think it was at Alkmaar. I think we played in the Europa League qualifiers, and I think that was the moment for me where I kind of felt, you know, Celtic were actually going to be making strides under Postecoglou. Now, don't get me wrong, at no point did I think in the summer last year Celtic were going to win the league. I was nowhere near that convinced of it. I thought it was going to be too much of a gap to try and overturn in one season. I thought it might take a bit of time, but there was signs to be positive of there. And it'd be interesting, Conor, from your point of view, at what point did you kind of look at it and sort of think, with Postecoglou, you were kind of, you know, bang into what he was trying to do? Was that from day one with you? Did it take you a bit of time to kind of see what he was trying to implement?
It took me a long time. I just felt like you're trying to do something. There's too much of a turnover of players. You've not got any coaches to back you up on this vision that you've got as well. You're trying to be too stubborn, I felt at times. You know, that is the honest truth. And you know what? That's just a fickle. McKaylee, whose points up just now, we're going to come to that with Conor in a minute. McKaylee said yesterday the most simplest of comment, Jonathan, that rang true, and it wasn't about having soaking pants, by the way. It was actually the one where she said, football fans are fickle. It's that simple. It's true. Celtic were getting negative results, Jonathan. So guess what? Ange's vision that he had and what he was trying to do made no sense to me. I'm used to a Celtic machine. I have been spoiled, you know, and I think, see, in fairness as well, I've spoken on various podcasts as well, saying, you know, I've been able to you know, sort of rinse out last season, if you like, maybe earlier or easier than other fans have. I've been able to very quickly forgive Neil Lennon compared to other fans because I've seen hell in the 90s, you know? Chunks is coming in and saying his favourite title was the 97-98 one. I kind of get that. But Jonathan, initially this season, I just felt you're trying to just bring in something that's not going to work, mate, like this quickly. You need to adapt. I kept saying you have to adapt. Yes, the ultimate goal might be Ange ball, as it was known at the time, but maybe we can't go from where we were with 12 new signings to Ange ball instantly. Maybe we need to try and mix it a wee bit more and be a wee bit more pragmatic. That's how I felt. And I do think we've seen glimpses of that, by the way, throughout the season. As much as this, the most, sort of strongest of Ange fans from day one would deny it. I think there is an element that he has adapted at times. But Conor, here's the other side to Postecoglou, which I think's been so refreshing this season. It's Cayley Galt who brings up the point. It's the way he carries himself. He speaks to the media, and the manager, he has shown he is capable of who he's being. He's massively underrated by everyone at the start, but he's an absolute quality guy. I think this rings so true. He is the type of character you are proud is the face of Celtic Football Club right now, Conor.
Definitely. I think I replied to a tweet. I think it was after one. I would say it was after one of his interviews where he said something quite clever. So you'll probably have to ask me which one because he's had that many this year. But I said, if Celtic at the end of the season don't release a book with all of Ange's best quotes, then it's an absolute missed opportunity because he came away with so many lines that I feel are going to be iconic, not just this season, but hopefully in seasons in the future as well. And the one that I always go back to was after the 3-0 demolition of Rangers at Celtic Park. And he said, there's 60,000 people in here tonight. They came in with problems of their own, with their families and with issues going on in their life somewhere else. And for 90 minutes, we were able to take that away and make them feel good. And that really stuck with me. Like, it makes me feel really emotional because during the 10 in a row season, me personally, my mental health was at an all-time low. Okay. Coupled with the football as well as other things in my personal life. Sure. And following a year later, you've got a man in charge of the football club that I love being able to play this absolutely incredible football with these players that you love, every single one of them. And he speaks and he acts and he carries himself in this way that it seems like if you went up to him with a problem, he'd put his arm around you and help you with it. And it feels like it's just this incredible feeling you have with this guy that I've not experienced with a Celtic manager in my lifetime, going back right back to Martin O'Neill, and it's genuinely it's crazy because I wish him nothing but success, even if it doesn't work out in the next few seasons. But I wish him absolutely nothing but success because of the way he's made me feel this year with regards to this football club and regards to everything else. I think it's just amazing what he's done.
I think that's a brilliant point, and the way you've done it, I appreciate your honesty as well, Conor. I really like that. And I think, Jonathan, we've got a guy. Someone's comparing it earlier in the comments. I can't quite bring it up now, but they were saying, like, I've never fell in love with a manager like this since Martin O'Neill. When he took over, I love talking about Martin O'Neill. Any excuse to even say Martin O'Neill's name. I am obsessed.
Double Doon Quiz will have Martin O'Neill questions galore. We know you love Martin O'Neill, yes.
I do. But, Jonathan, he connected it like no other. You need to remember when Martin O'Neill took over, it had been the John Barnes, then Kenny Dalglish season, for fuck's sake. This was a shit show. This was, and again, the opposition at that point had so much wealth. They were leaving us in the dust, mate. Celtic had ex-players, Liverpool players who never managed before, being the manager, getting sacked after getting beat off Inverness Cali 3-1. Martin O'Neill, though, had this gravitas and this genuineness, which I see in Ange, that he's got a fondness for the football club and its fans. He seems to be able to relate. He says the right things. How big a difference, this is what I'm trying to get to with Cayley's point, and this you made, Jonathan, that Conor's alluded to very openly and very honestly, and I appreciate that. But I also want you to delve into this wee bit, Jonathan. See, when you consider last year how bad it was all the more unpalatable for the fact that the manager was conducting himself in a way that I feel let himself down in. By the way, I don't think Neil Lennon's a bad person. I know people want to kick him all the time. I really try not to do that with Lennon. Lennon was my hero growing up. I had his name. He's the only guy I ever had in that Celtic era with his name and number on the back of my shirt was Lennon. But he was coming out like he was the scattergun approach, Jonathan, and he was shouting and whining and bitching and moaning. See what Ange, when decisions went against us or decisions went for us, he's been very consistent. His tone never changes. Yesterday, Jonathan, we see another example with his favourite punch bag, Kenny McIntyre. And again, he goes, only you could put a dynamite, you know, on winning a championship. Only you could put it. Oh, but you know what I mean, Ange. You know, he's delivering things, Jonathan. I just think we've got something to stand behind and be proud of when Ange Postecoglou is the manager. The way he's conducting and carrying himself right now is a credit to him and a brilliant ambassador for Celtic Football Club.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, even if you're looking at the sort of Lennon comparisons in some ways of just handling the media, I think Postecoglou is just far superior in every sense. In that way, I think Lennon was always somebody who could react, not as if I'm really trying to have a go at Neil Lennon. I too have kind of forgiven him, forgotten him about the season before. I think Lennon brought more good than bad to the club, and I think that will be remembered.
Of course he did.
So I think when it comes to Neil Lennon, I think people just will calm down when that passes and there's enough time has passed there. But I mean, if you're talking about the actual media side of things, then it's quite clear Postecoglou just knows how to play them like a fiddle at times. And I actually think he quite enjoys the sparring, because I just don't think it's effortless for him. It's like swatting a fly, I think, for Postecoglou dealing with some of these idiots in the press. He's probably thinking, what on earth is this that he's getting treated to?
Jonathan, it's like you're mirroring what Matt C is saying.
Yeah.
I'll let you read that one out, mate, and take it away, because that is identical, basically, to what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, Matt's pretty much saying that the media don't even try to trip Ange up anymore. He treats folks as he's treated, with respect, but mess with him and you just don't go there. And it's absolutely, yeah, mate. And that's how he signs off. That's when you know there's anything but your mate when he says mate at the end of it. It's pretty much, it's now the gloves are off if he's coming out with that.
It's cold.
It is cold. It's very much his way of saying, yeah, that's it. You're now on my radar. I'm not putting up with any more rubbish from you. So, as far as that side of things goes, I think Postecoglou with media handling has been excellent. I think when you look at him overall as a person, I would have to echo what Conor's been saying. I think he's been a brilliant ambassador for the club. You've got to look at it and think he actually comes across like quite like a sort of fatherly figure in a lot of ways. Postecoglou to me, he's like somebody you could kind of see having his arm around the shoulder of anyone who was struggling. I think he's got a real sense of community about him. I think he cares about how the fans are feeling. I think he cares about how the players are feeling. He just comes across as a genuinely nice, warm-hearted person who would always kind of have an eye out for people that, you know, probably were possibly struggling, and he would have the time of day to take out and speak with them, which, you know, he doesn't have to do, but it's just something that I find so refreshing as a manager, that he is willing to point out things, you know, such as people's, you know, mental health and things like that, that quite often wouldn't be talked about. You know, he's also done so many good things with the players. You know, you can see how much they've came on leaps and bounds.
Absolutely.
And it's not even just to do with, you know, their playing ability. A lot of that comes down to management style and, you know, personality. And I think the fact of the matter is, with the players, they've all bought into what Ange has been trying to do, and that's been clear with the unbelievable run we've been on in the league, is because they have bought into what he's saying. And I think he would be harsh on them when he needs to, but I think he is he's not going to be like a sort of Neil Lennon figure to go back to that sort of comparison again, where, you know, if Celtic were to lose a game sometimes under Lenny would sometimes like throw them all under the bus, if you like, not our bus, but certainly a bus of some sort.
A train. I would call it a train, Jonathan.
Maybe the Lenny train.
A boat or a train or an aeroplane. Just don't say the bus word.
So something like that. So, you know, Lenny would be quite quick to hammer the players when things didn't go well. Whereas I think with Postecoglou, he's very measured, and he doesn't get too high when Celtic win a game, and I don't think he gets too disheartened when they lose one either. And I think that's been key to our success.
Jonathan, I'm going to come in a wee bit there, right? And I wonder what Conor thinks of this. Now, Jonathan makes up an interesting point there, because he's saying, in fact, before I go to that, I'm just going to quickly say, Les Watts, he's getting emotional right now. Listen, mate, amazing that you've told us what you're going through, pal. The whole bus is here for you. Thank you for sharing what you've went through, and I hope the road to recovery is as fast, swift, and smooth as it possibly can be. But we're all here for you, mate. And thank you for being a member of the bus as well. How cool is that? But yeah, thanks for sharing it. You can see the love that's coming in for you, Les, mate. Nice one. But just moving on quickly, Conor, to you. Jonathan says that he feels that when Celtic players weren't putting in a shift, or weren't doing a good display, Neil Lennon was rounding on them, you know, and he's battering them for it, and it's maybe not getting the right response. I think Ange is doing it just as much. I just think it's succinctly how he does it. You know, it's very clever, and it'll be scything down your morale, but getting the best out at the same time. I think you'll look at them and you'll not rant and rave, as Jonathan's alluding to. You know, he's very well measured, but I bet you sometimes when he gives you a put down, it could hurt even that wee bit more. But the fact he's not making a drama or a scene, do you think that helps get the best out of players? Tom Rogic, we thought, needed a rocket up his arse. You know, that was basically, it was described at times last year. We were going to let him go for £4 million, you know, to Qatar or whatever it was. Now, you're looking at him and you're going, he's got his mojo back. He plays 90 minutes. I can't imagine a time Ange has shouted and ranted or raved at Tom. But I bet he's hurt his feelings at times too.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. Just a quick shout out to Les as well. That's really nice hearing that. As someone whose prostate cancer has personally affected my family as well, it's really nice to see you sharing that as well. And just if anybody who's watching that can, I don't know, maybe if you have the time or whatever, just donate to Cancer Research UK, maybe just to help the fight for prostate cancer and all kinds of cancer out there as well, which would be nice. But
well said, mate.
Yeah, with specifically Tom Rogic, I came into the season thinking, like, where does Tom Rogic fit in? Because remember, he was meant to go away to, I think it was Qatar or something like that for pennies, for like a couple of beans, and then
£3 million or something.
He's producing some of the best football I think I've seen him play, and he's been here for almost 10 years, and it's only took a big mental Aussie to come over and get the best out of him, you know. But I think that's just kind of the manager that Ange is. But we have seen him. We've only seen him on a handful of occasions on the touchline, screaming at them. One was the cup game; he was screaming at Stephen Welsh, and the other one I think was the last derby where he was having a bit of a go at some of the players. But obviously, we don't know what it's like in the changing rooms, but I don't think Ange is the kind of guy. He's not giving him the Fergie, the blow dryer treatment. He's probably no like Lennon, where he's in there like giving them pelters. He's probably like a parent who comes in and says, "I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed," and that hurts worse usually. And that's probably why the players are, up in their game, because he's probably going and telling them. He's not saying, "Oh, you're shit, you're not playing, blah, blah, blah." He's probably saying, "I know you can do better because I've seen you do it in training. I know what you can do. I know exactly the kind of player you are." And he's probably the one to try and get that out of them.
I think you're absolutely right. Now, there's a relevant comparison I'm going to make here, and people might not like this, but they should, because it's fair. There was a very, very successful manager across the city that passed away this year. Or this season, I should say, called Walter Smith, who you can't ever imagine him needing to. I know he did at times, and it's legendary and stuff. But on the majority of the time, he didn't need to. He just knew how to look at people and get the best out of them, Jonathan. And I think Postecoglou now has this mad aura. He's got an aura. The media fucking sense it. The fact even that Kenny McIntyre barely said anything naughty, and yet still he sides him down, makes him feel that size. I think in the dressing room, Jonathan, this is a very, very good weapon to have, particularly when what he's done is he's not going in there with any clicks, if you like. And I think what Neil Lennon went into, in absolute fairness to Lennon, he went in and there was clicks in that dressing room, right? I think there was a French contingent that were a click. I think Scott Brown, Johnny Hayes, etc. were a click. I think when Ronnie Dyler took over, there were clicks in the dressing room. The old no tomato sauce. You got to look after yourself. And I think there was a group that made that very difficult for Ronnie Dyler to implement his ideas. The beauty of Ange, which don't get me wrong, by the way, in a football term, how difficult it is to implement 12 new players into a squad, then another 4 in January. That's 16 in total. Right? That's a whole new squad almost. But do you know what the beauty of that was? No one knew where they stood. There was no groups. There's nowhere to hide. Nowhere to run to, baby. Nowhere to hide. And I think Ange Postecoglou has absolutely masterminded that. And he's got them all sitting there at a level where If they fuck up, they know they're out. They don't need to get shouted at. They know by the look. They know what they've done. They know the standards have went up, Jonathan. So see when you make an error, Ange has risen standards around Celtic that you almost don't need told. He doesn't need to tell you. You know you've blown it because we are now operating at a different level than what we were. I'm afraid to say the 18 months under Neil Lennon. It's not personal at Lenny. It's just he did let standards fall. We went from elite manager to, I'm sorry, a downgrade, a big time downgrade. And now I think we're back up to where we were prior to Neil Lennon again.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you there. I think there's similarities, and I think it's one of the best comments you can play, Postecoglou. For me, there's similarities between him and when Rodgers first came in at Celtic. I think Brendan Rodgers was somebody who was able to transform the club. Obviously, fair enough, the transition wasn't quite as drastic as it needed to be this season, but Rodgers was definitely inheriting a squad that was on a downward trend when he came in, and he managed to reverse that, completely changed the standards, expectations around not just the first team, by the way, but I think the full squad and the full club in general benefited from him being there and his vision of where the club should be going. And I would be very surprised if Ange Postecoglou doesn't have similar sort of visions in mind to what Brendan was trying to do a few years back. And it'll be interesting with Postecoglou if, now that he's obviously proven, because I think for this year it was always going to be a bit of a trial with the Celtic board this year to actually see if they've got the right man, because nobody really knew what to expect from Postecoglou coming in or whether it was going to work or not. I'm still convinced that the Celtic board have just pulled a rabbit out of the hat more than this being a brilliant.
They've struck gold, Jonathan. They've struck gold. I think the Mark Lawwell appointment, I think there might be a wee bit of a paper trail, Jonathan. I think Mark Lawwell may well have been the man who maybe threw that sort of hint to the Celtic board, Jonathan. My hunch or my understanding is Ange Postecoglou was never anything to do with Dom Mackay. Was put forward by Peter Lawwell. We're going to guess both part of the City group was Mark Lawwell and Ange Postecoglou at the time. Mark Lawwell's now head of recruitment. I think Mark Lawwell is the man who told Celtic about Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, and that would make sense. If you're joining the dots, it would make absolute sense that Lawwell did have an influence on that part of it. But as I say, looking at it, Celtic took a punt when they put Postecoglou in there. There's no two ways about it. Thankfully, it's turned out to be an absolutely fantastic punt that's went in the top corner from our point of view. But
absolutely,
you're now looking at it and thinking Postecoglou's now had a year. He's done far more than anyone really expected him to achieve. I think anyone, if they'd even just said this, would take the League Cup and run Rangers close in the league title race, would have probably said, yeah, fine, fair enough. It's a rebuild. It's part of the development on towards next season. But the fact that we've won the league, we've got Champions League money coming in. We're going straight into the group stages for the first summer, and I don't know how long. Must be over a decade. We're not going to be playing qualifiers. So that means you've got
2008-2009 season. Sorry to interrupt you again, by the way. It's just 2008-2009 season.
08-09. So there you go. That's going right back to Gordon Strachan's time then, by the sounds of things. So
yep, that's last season.
Yeah, so you're looking at it then and you're thinking that's a long time for Celtic to have been in a position where they've had a full summer transfer window where the only thing they've got to focus on is transfer business without actually having to come up with some of the most important games of the season in the first few weeks of the season. And we know notoriously with the Celtic board, they would like to wait and find out which competition Celtic were playing in before they would decide how much money they were going to spend. Whereas this year, they know exactly where they're going to be in. They know what Postecoglou's now brought to the table. And my question for you now is, Russell, is Postecoglou going to get backed? Are the board going to double down on Ange Postecoglou this summer?
History would tell you they won't. And it's going to show whether there's a new era at Celtic. We've obviously got Mr. Nicholson now in prime position. We've brought in Mark Lawwell, who I think a lot of his fear will be a carbon copy of his dad. I think we need to give Mark Lawwell his respect in his own right. I think he's carved out a career at the City Group for the last decade, Conor. I don't think you get to do that if you're, just someone's puppet or my father's son, and any of that shite. I think very much he's been brought in at a footballing level. I think what we're going to see now is the proof in the pudding this summer, Jonathan. Will Celtic really make the same mistakes they did with John McGinn's, for example, only 2-3 years ago? Castagne's at 9 million, that eventually gets sold for 22 million 12 months later. Piccini is at 7 million. I don't know what happened with his career, but that were identified, targeted. John McGinn's that are going to go for 60, 70 million this summer. Make no mistake, if he's sold, it'll be 60, 70 million. We haggled over £300,000. Are Celtic really wanting to go down that road again? Surely to God this time, particularly when maybe even the complacency, whether we like it or not, a Celtic fan podcast aren't allowed to talk about Rangers, right? But Celtic have based loads of their decisions based on what Rangers' current standing is. Well, Rangers' current standing is a far cry from what it was when we were haggling over John McGinn's. They're a European finalist right now, Jonathan. They went unbeaten the whole of last season. David Kelly was in the comments yesterday going, this is a better Rangers team that we're up against than what you think. I kind of get where he's coming from. We can't afford to not be giving the manager every tool he asks for, or at least fighting tooth and nail to get them. Conor, Jonathan asked me, will Ange be back this summer? For me, it's a non-optional thing. It has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think Ange will necessarily let them get away with not backing him either, because I think he's got the ace up his sleeve now and what he's achieved. Because let's be honest, like, the board will give themselves a pat on the back and take credit for his appointment. But it was made publicly clear that it wasn't the first option. That was almost like a panic option. Like, oh, get him in, quickly. We need something quick to get it done over the line. So what he's done has been incredible, and how it's worked out has been amazing. And the board will likely give themselves a pat on the back for it and pretend that they were the masterminds behind this. And maybe Mark Lobel was to a certain extent, but he wasn't part of the board then at that point, so he can't really take credit for it.
I know.
So Ange has got the ace up his sleeve saying, I just want to use a double. I just won the league. I've got us into Champions League. I've just got us a £30 million war chest that we can play with. So, I'd like to be backed, because he already has said that there was areas where they will need improving, there are areas which we will need improving. He has come out recently and mentioned that it will be more quality over quantity.
Yes, he did.
And I think that's a good sign, because it also means that we'll invest the money wisely, and we won't just be splashing the cash on players like Ajeti and Barkas and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think we're going to get as, like a basic entire new 11 like we had this season, but I do think we'll improve vastly on the positions that we do need filled. And I think Ange, if he's taught me anything this year, is that he's had his targets picked out a good few months ago. He knows who he wants and he knows how to get them. So, he's ahead of the curve in a lot of aspects, and I think it'll be interesting. This is a bit of a tangent, but that's why I know it sounds bizarre, because
we love this
being played. There's no football being played. But see the area in between seasons where you're getting kit leaks and transfer rumours and who's going here, who's going where, what's happening over here. That's some of my favourite part of the season, even though there's no football being played, because it builds the anticipation, it builds the excitement. And I think under Ange, and with how well Celtic are actually getting now at providing the fans with what they want, especially when it comes to things like on social media, hinting at things, playing in with the banter, blah, blah, blah. I think it could be a good summer and a good transfer window. So hopefully the board will back Ange, because I think with them across the city doing so well, and make no bones about it, they've done incredibly 100%. Well to get
I'm glad you said that.
To get to a final. We can't. You can say, oh, they got luck here. They haven't, won any away games, penalties, blah, blah, blah. But you can only beat what's in front of you. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing when they were saying, oh, you've only beat Dundee. You've only beat, St Johnstone. We still beat them, though, to get to where we are now. So
you can only beat what's in front of you, mate.
Exactly.
You can't do the draw.
I know. So it's just, we have to just, be patient, wait and see. But I do think that Ange has got his targets. I think he knows what he wants, and I think he knows a player and he knows a bargain where he sees one. And if I know anything, the word bargain's getting the nips of the Celtic board absolutely stiff listening to that. So, you know.
I think you raised some interesting points there. I think you're absolutely right. The board has changed though slightly, Jonathan. The board has changed. Now, Mark Nicholson in charge, we don't know really much about. We wanted to not like him at first. I just think because there was an appetite to hate everyone in the Celtic board that we almost hadn't voted in, if you like, you know. Is the Mark Lawwell appointment something to speed up Ange's vision? And is there a wee bit of evidence now with the January window that we've just had to sort of sit there now, Jonathan, and think, do you know what? We've already seen signs of change. That January window was a masterclass. And by the way, I actually think when we reflect on the season, which I'm sure we will do on the bus many a times over the summer, I actually think we're going to look back at the January window and go, see what a shift in attitude can do. 3 players announced on the 31st of December, Jonathan. 3 players. We announced players on the 31st of January the year before on loans. This time, they were already, it was the worst kept secret in football. Yeah. The 3 boys were joining the 1st of January. And what a difference it makes. Can you imagine? So this, someone else came in and saying, you know, what if they don't get CCV and Jota? Well, do you know what the beauty is? They've restored my confidence a wee bit that we're not going to panic. If not, I think there'll be plans in place. I think if we don't get Jota and CCV, we might already know that. Either way, the answer right now, Jonathan, it's just not public. Yeah. Conor McCann comes in, a brilliant contributor in the Boyce'S whenever he comes on. He was on Regan's show, the Sunday Blether, which are doing every week right now, by the way, as well. And Conor is now saying, you know, no more square pegs in my nose. Ange knows what he needs. Lawwell is now there to get him. He doesn't mean Peter Lawwell. He means Mark Lawwell. Is Mark Lawwell there to modernise, Jonathan, what has been a stagnant, I think, Celtic board over the last 10 years, a complacent Celtic board? And what I found really is an unambitious Celtic board. Is the modernising of the club, are we beginning to see that? Is maybe Nicholson being more of a forward thinker than what we thought, even albeit he was part of the old regime? Is Mark Lawwell coming, leaving the City Group, high-profile position to come into Celtic? Is that a forward-thinking move? And is the fact we've got a manager here right now who seems to have his finger in a million pies across the country, and I'm glad I'm not Terry Robb saying that, Kaylee. But if that was, are we seeing now? Are we now beginning to see Celtic becoming a 2022 club, Jonathan, and being relevant again? And are we going to see a manager we all want there to succeed get all the tools to succeed?
Yeah, I think the signs are looking encouraging, definitely. I mean, I know obviously not everyone will be keen on the Mark Lawwell appointment, given a lot of people will just look at it as if he's got the job because Peter Lawwell used to be at the club. But if you're looking at it, taking a step back, Mark Lawwell has done well in his career. He has worked with Postecoglou in the past as well. You know, there's clearly a bit of a relationship there. You could hear Ange was quite enthusiastic as well about having the chance to work with Mark again. So that from that side of things, you're definitely looking at it and thinking there is signs of Celtic being able to galvanise themselves and go again and hopefully learn from the mistakes they've made in so many windows before. If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, as the old saying goes. And I think, when you're looking at Celtic now, there does feel as if this could be the time where Celtic do actually make changes to how they approach the summer transfer window. Because if they can do what they did in January, which I agree 100%, January was a huge turning point for us in the league because Postecoglou badly needed players at the time.
Agreed.
Celtic were on the ropes in December, by all accounts, with the amount of injuries they had. We knew we needed players in the door. And obviously we managed to get them in right at the start of the window, which is unheard of for Celtic. Really, the last time that happened was a long, long time ago. I couldn't even tell you the last time Celtic done their business as early as that, and that just shouldn't be the case. Celtic should be in a position by now where they've got their targets lined up and they're not scrambling about on the last day of the window unless if they lose one of their key players because something ridiculous happens. That's the only way that should ever really be happening, in my opinion. Celtic shouldn't be a team that's going into it and just mollycoddling their way sort of through the transfer. wait until they get to the final day and then thinking, oh shit, we need to actually sign some players, and then just fucking getting like Everton's third choice right back on loan or whatever.
It's embarrassing.
And they decide to do. So I think from that point of view, I think it will be better. And I think Peter Law, when he was running the ship as the chief executive, I think he did get himself too heavily involved in transfers. That's my gut feeling there. So I think with Nicholson being in, I don't think he will get as heavily involved in anything like that. I think his background's more legal from what I've heard on his side of things.
See, when you've been in the board as well, Jonathan, you learn from the mistakes that are happening right in front of your eyes. You go, oh, fucking don't do the same thing. Like, see, when you see it fall apart in the magnitude that it did, I think Mark Nicholson would be a wise man just to go, I'll just take a wee step back here, let the football men do the football, right? And it's my job to get business over the line. But we're going to move on a wee bit because I think we did exhaust it a wee bit yesterday talking about the boards and Ange's long-term vision. I think over the course of the close season corner, we're going to have loads more debates about this when inevitably the first player that we find out, whether it be via the Daily Record and they're being a wee bit troublemaker, is falling through some sort of signing. Well, I'm sure we'll do pods dedicated to challenging the board's ambition and attitude. But there was a beautiful thing that happened, and it was all about Celtic on the pitch on Saturday. And I think it's very important to remember as a Celtic supporter, the reason we get so obsessed with the boardroom tantrums, manager attitudes, transfer deadlines and transfer targets and signings and budgets and all this stuff is because of, at the end of the day, ultimately, what we see on that green stuff over there, and it's the pitch. On the pitch, we've got attacking options that I think now dwarf a generation that I was when I first started loving football. The Tommy Burns era, we had Andy, Tom, and then you had the three amigos. So there was Andreas Tom, East German international. I think he'd be capped for West Germany. I think he was the first East German to be capped for the German Union team. Well, now what you would call the Germany team, something like that. And then you had Di Canio, Cadetti, Van Hooijdonk. Well, I think, look at these guys I'm going to list you here with a couple of stats, Conor. And I want to get back to talking football a wee bit because this is the fun bit. And we can now do it a wee bit knowing we're champions, by the way, Conor, as well. You know, since January, Chaos has 14 goals and 14 starts this season. 13 off the bench. Yes, fine. I thought his finish at the weekend proved he's the most natural finisher of that football club and then some. They have to find a way to accommodate him, in my opinion, in the starting lineup for our biggest games. Jota on fire, took his goal contributions up to 26 now for the season. 14 assists, 12 goals. We've seen the way he celebrated against Rangers the week before. We then see the other side to him on Saturday with the 2 assists. Kyogo then scores again. And it's almost been a sort of under the radar return from Kyogo. He has 2 goals in 4 games. Read into that what you will. Abada was the young player of the year again in double digits for goals and assists this year. He only turned 20 in October. You look at all these options. Maeda, 10 goal contributions since January. Do you look at all those options? And yet I'm sitting there telling you yesterday, I still think we'll sign the poacher in the summer. Of some, like, I don't think it'll be like that. You know, we're getting excited. They're talking about bigger budget players. I do think we'll bring in a poacher. It might even be someone for Scotland. Not that I can think of any that come to mind. But I think we will bring in a poacher of some sort of degree that brings very little else to the table but scores goals. Because we could still convert more chances than what we create. But see, when you look at those options that we already have, Conor, how exciting is this to be a Celtic fan right now and watching this on the pitch, mate?
It's great. It's just it's such a the way I put it is this is when the game finishes, you don't want it to end. You want to just keep watching them because you're enjoying it that much. You're enjoying watching the football that much as getting played in the park because it is great and it is like incredible to watch. Just that the way the front three link up, the way that they all have these different kind of attributes. You know, like Maeda's, you know, like the whip it. He's just up and down that side of the pitch all day long. Can do it for fun. Jota's, you know, the silky smooth, sexy, Portuguese
poster boy,
you know. I mean, he's single-handedly got my girlfriend interested in football again, so thanks for that. You know,
love that, mate. Love that.
And you've got, Kyogo, who's just everybody's. He's just the darling. Everybody loves him, And for being, this is the thing, for being a wee guy, he scored a few headers this season, and I've seen people talk about it, but not as much as I feel it should be highlighted. Is that finish yesterday to get that ball over the line was really brave, because Craig Gordon's like could potentially. I know he goes back for it to try and scoop out, but he could come forward, He could come forward, he could clear Kyogo out. He could, the Hearts defender could, raise a boot, boot him in the head. So to put his head on the line and get that across the line was really brave as well. And obviously you've got the Greek god up front, Giakoumakis, who's built like an absolute tank, who, is he's the bloody reason I'm starting a gym membership tomorrow, boys. I mean, I swear to God, I watched him. On the sidelines with his top off, I was like, Jesus Christ, what's happened to me? But I mean, to be fair, if that was me, like honestly, I wouldn't bother putting my top on. I was painting the number on the back of myself and on the pitch. But I would just and he's just this absolute powerhouse, a striker who for some reason, I say it every time we're here, my dad is still not convinced he's the answer. I'm like, are you? Why? I don't even watch it anymore. I don't even watch the same game. So I've got a £50 bet with him that he'll finish our top scorer next season. So GG, if you're listening, you've got 50 quid in the line for my son. So please help me out. So,
what did you make of his finish, Conor? Though, right? Let's look at his finish. I've not really spoken about the game in depth because as you rightfully say, we go down rabbit holes and tangents and all. That's what the bus is all about. Because I steer it, and Jonathan, as you know, I can't drive, so I mean, it could go anywhere. But what I will say is, I looked at Giakoumakis' finish. I watched it again today on the highlights reel. That's top draw finish. See, as a sub, see when you actually factor in he's a sub as well, and usually he's talking about getting up to game speed and stuff, and that finish is stupid. Watch his movement. He deliberately then just randomly hangs back on that off chance. But the pace the ball actually comes to him at, for him to get his hip up there and his foot above it to get that directed down with the power and accuracy I am talking about right now, I think it should be no surprise though. Conor, when was the last time Celtic signed the Eredivisie's top goal scorer by 9 goals for a relegated team? What is the doubt here?
I don't know. I keep forgetting. I'll keep forgetting he was the Eridivisie's top goal scorer last year.
By 7 goals.
By 7. He was the Eridivisie's top scorer last year.
His team got relegated.
Yeah. That's why like people are singing the praises of like Regan Charles Cook because he's the top goal scorer this season, but he's playing for Ross County, who by no means have the biggest budget and by no means, are the biggest club. But Malcolm Mackay, credit to him, has got this player playing, great, and he's a top scorer in the league. So people need, including my dad, need to give Giakoumakis the praise that he deserves, rightfully so.
I agree.
Because when Kyogo was out, Giakoumakis hadn't really had a go at it yet, and people were like, oh shit, what do we do? Giakoumakis comes in and steps up to the plate. He's like, and he strikes to me as the kind of guy who's like, when the noise came in about him missing that penalty, and then I remember I was at the game, it was against Wraith Rovers in the Cup, and he got injured during the warm-up, and we're like, who the fuck is this guy? He's getting injured during the warm-up. Like, what the hell's going on? And then he comes in and he steps up to the plate, and I think he's heard the noise and he's used it to motivate himself to get to say, you all think I'm a diddy? I'll show you how good I am. And he's proved it by a long shot. If he was fit for the start of the season and Kyogo hadn't took that injury, I swear to God, they both of them probably be on sitting on 20 goals. Both of them.
I think at least. I mean, Conor McCann, as I say, a regular, or hopefully will be a regular contributor over the next year or so on the Bhoycie bus, Jonathan. He's already hung his hat out that a fully fit Chaos Giakoumakis scores 35 goals next year. It's a big call, but it's not one that surprises me when you actually look at his track record. I go back to his interview. I found it so insightful. I'm glad I made a big deal of it at the time. And I never tried to be Nostradamus. I'm not really my style, Jonathan. But you can pick up body language and for people, and when they've got the bit between their teeth. Chaos did 2 examples of that, where I kind of started believing in this guy even more than I did based on his stats in the Eredivisie. And that is, after the Alloa game, he says, "Judge me now. I'm fit. I'm healthy." And he said it on TV. He goes, "I'm fit. I'm healthy. I'm fit and healthy. I've not been fit and healthy, so being able to judge me from now." And I thought, fucking hell, that's quite the way he said it. And then the other one was, we will win the league because we're the best team in Scotland. We believe that. We believe we're better all over the pitch than our rivals. That's fine with me. Prove it. He did. I've got no issue with it, Jonathan. I've got no issue with it. Those 2 wee signs, I think he brings a streak to Celtic that I think we might need a wee bit more of throughout the team, if I'm honest. And I think there's a lot of talk on Twitter right now. Would you go for a dominant midfielder, a holding midfielder, maybe a bit more of a physical presence? I think there is an argument for that. But I certainly think in terms of attitude, Giakoumakis backs up his physicality with an attitude I think it's a bit of a throwback, Jonathan. I think Giakoumakis would have fitted in, you know what I'm going to say, the Martin O'Neill team. Yes, I do. I am sorry to say it. But we will go on to another point that I wanted to discuss tonight as well. Nir Bitton, and I don't like to be overly negative. This is the bus of positivity. But Jonathan, Nir Bitton's been there for 10 years. It looks like he's doing the farewell photos. There's a bit of, I think, fake nostalgia now getting said. There's a bit of revisionism going on. And for me, when you actually look at it, Nir Bitton, to me, legend? Absolutely not. How he's got away with so many, being there under so many managers, for me, his biggest memories as a Celtic player were ones where he's let me down. I don't mean let me down, I mean let Celtic down, but let me down when I'm watching it, you know. That'll be the memories I have of Nir Bitton. I don't know where this loving comes from. I think this happens in sport in general. Players get to a certain vintage and you start, looking at them with, more romantic eyes, if you like. The fact of the matter is, Nir Bitton never made it to the top to get chopped down. Nir Bitton never made himself a regular in the Celtic team. Go and tell me in the last 11 years that he's been there, how many seasons he started 30 games plus? Few and far between, if any. And then again, as I say, when it came to the big moments, Bitton is a problem for me. He worries me. He doesn't bring this balance people talk about. He brings me the fear, Jonathan. And I think in terms of what Celtic are lacking, in terms of when they say, "Oh, we need someone to have that sort of a mindset, what is a very forward-thinking Celtic team." That's all very well said and good, but I think that needs to be brought with an element of physicality as well, which Bitton doesn't bring either. I'm not going to be a total wanker about it, but it means nothing to me if he goes.
No, I can kind of take that point as well. I think with Bitton, he's been a loyal servant, of course he has. But in terms of his role at the club, he's very much been a utility player pretty much the full time he's been here. He's been a handy player to have in the squads. I think certainly offers you something as a defensive midfielder. In certain games, you might look at him and think he might be an option. But I do think there's a time and a place to try and get better players in. And to be honest, I think the intention was if James McCarthy comes in, I think the intention was if he was going to be phasing Bitton out, and you'd have thought between the two of them when McCarthy came in, McCarthy would have probably paid more than Bitton. That's not really worked out that way at all this season for whatever reason. I think something must go on behind the scenes though, because he does impress a lot of different managers. He's had Lennon, who's fancied him. He's had Dyla, who's played him quite a bit. Brendan Rodgers quite liked him. Brendan tried to put him in as a centre half and thought he could maybe convert him, similar to what's happened across Europe with certain players like a Mascherano type. So there's definitely been a lot of love by managers towards Bitton. So I would say that they've obviously seen something there that perhaps we're missing. But but at the same token, you're looking at it, you're thinking of the three or four managers have all thought Nir Bitton has a part to play at the club. Then he must be doing something right behind the scenes. In terms of games, there's nothing that really stands out for me as a particularly memorable game where I go back and think Nir Bitton's highlight at Celtic was X, Y, or Z a game. I mean, to make a very good comparison, if we're talking the term legend, a proper Celtic legend was actually the person who left last season and is now just retired
I like this.
Because that is a legend and he will be remembered. And I'm talking about Scott Brown, of course. And he's a completely different gravy from a Nir Bitton type figure. So I don't think anyone should be using the term legend whatsoever to be describing Nir Bitton. A very loyal player, but at the same time...
loyal because he's never going to get that wage anywhere else. Come on, I'd be loyal too.
You went and just stole my thunder there. I was about to say, with Scott Brown, he had the opportunities to go to England and he never did. Whereas with Nir Bitton, let's be honest, was anyone ever going to come calling for him? Probably not, let's be honest.
Come on, Jonathan. Of course they were. I just think that, I get Danielle's point. Danielle's going to be the first female guest ever, by the way, on the Bhoycie bus this Friday. Another landmark moment in this channel's history, which we are about to rack up our 100th show as well this week, Jonathan. I don't know if you know that. 100 not out after 5 months. Is there anyone more harder working than the bus itself, mate, in Celtic Podland? I don't think so, even if I was salaried for it. Now, Danielle F., good squad player, but he was integral and Abada settling in so quick. I think he has been massive in Abada settling in so quick, and I've got to agree with that, Danielle. But what I would say is, you think about how much he's picking up in a wage. We can't afford to have players getting paid 8-9 grand a week to settle in another player. What's he brought to the party this season? People seem to think he's done all right this season. He's done all right. He's not done anything that I wouldn't be, if it was a new signing and it was integrated in the squad, it was 1920. That's what I'd be looking for. I don't think Nir Bitton's done anything that warrants anything but a shake of the hand. You did all right out of us, pal. And I'm sure some of the happy clappers might wish you well, but I don't know that I wish him bad. I'm come see, come sad about him going, Jonathan. I really am. Conor, would you stand Nir Bitton 10 years? Is it really that big a deal that he's leaving, though?
It's not. I think off the back how he's done this season, how I think I'd say, it wasn't hard to improve on him playing as a bloody centre-half when he's a centre midfielder. Do you know what I mean? It's not difficult to improve on that when he's playing at a position. Because he was doing that for a little while. But he has improved marginally this season under Ange. And I think every player's improved under Ange. It's not difficult considering who the manager is. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, of course.
You know what I mean? It's like there's 2 games that stand out for me this season. Well, 3 games. The one where he fucking get Michelin's player in the eye and got sent off. It costs us that game. That's on the bad side. On the flip side, I think he did really well when he played against Livingston, and when he was playing against Rangers at Ibrox. I thought he played really well, but that was only for a minimal spell for about 30 minutes. So that you don't get a contract extension or an increase in wages or this, that, and the next thing for having a handful of good games in a season, especially when it's clear that the manager has already brought in a new contingent and is starting this new era at Celtic. Because make no doubt about it, this is the Ange Postecoglou era of Celtic. I have no doubt about that. He's going to come in and he's going to shake the club at its foundations and keep everything, ticking over and keep them going well. So when Nir Bitton leaving, I'm a bit like, I'm like, he's given me like,
who cares for me?
I'll just feel like, okay. The best moment for me this season was the guy getting the picture with him at the garage saying Abada was away for a shite. That was the best moment he took part in.
But Conor, I'm going to use your own words. Now, you were, it's not actually your words, you were quoted Ange. And you were talking about earlier, I've watched Ange's interview. He's determined to bring in only immediate impact quality to the team. I'm sorry. If they're going to do that, that means that such is the evolution of a team and such is the way the food chain works. Nir Bitton doesn't make the cut. And if we're bringing in bona fide first-team players of pedigree that are ready to come straight into a team that's already thriving, Nir Bitton gets left behind either way. It's maybe a blessing in disguise that his contract's up. There's no way he meets the final cut after Ange does his next raft of signings. I'm sorry. I know other people are maybe giving him a bit of love in that, but I'm like, no. If Ange is talking about the players that he is, the way he's talking about immediate impact, like you were saying, Conor, immediate impact first teamers, there's no way Nir Bitton is a seat at that table, mate, when you include the fact he can't get in the first team now. Then you add another 3-4 that are going to be, as Ange says, not squad players, first team ready. Nir Bitton's then pushed out, mate, and I think it's a blessing in disguise his contract's up when you take that into consideration.
Also, considering the fact that the rumour is we're getting roughly, I don't know, $1 million, just over $1 million for him, that's decent money for a player who hasn't really contributed much.
No, that's true. That's true, but I mean, is it all about value for money? Is it always trying to get better? I mean, do you want sentiment like Mappy's shown us? You know, Mappy finds it sad and disrespectful to one of our players wearing the green and white. I think if wearing the green and white was enough for me to be, you know, concerned, I'm sorry. It's time to be ruthless and cold at Celtic. We've got the core of a very good first team here. In fact, the meat and bones of a very good first team squad. It's now about ruthless management. It's end of story, Jonathan. This is what it is. What was it they called it again? I'll do a WWE reference for Phil McGinley. Ruthless aggression. Is that not the name of one of the eras? It is. And that is where Celtic needs to now go. Nir Bitton's a passenger, Mappy. We are not here for sentiment. It's not trying to be disrespectful. I'll tell you when I did see disrespect, though, Mappy. And I'm glad you have brought the comment up because I think your heart's in the right place, but I think you've got a short memory. See, when Celtic were playing for 35 million, 40 million jackpot bounty at the start of the season, and Ange Postecoglou had 2 academy players playing at centre-back, and Dane Murray and Stephen Welsh. I think the eldest player in that first team was Nir Bitton at 30 years old, 10 years experience in the tank. I think he expected a hell of a lot more from Nir Bitton than poking an opposition player in the eye. And a game that we somehow had control of at that time, despite the patchwork job of it all. And yet he gets himself sent off. The whole tie goes, and we end up, you know, 100% not getting that £40 million. I'm not saying we would have made it through the other rounds, but it's not for Nir Bitton to pick and choose those moments. So when it comes to disrespect and sadness, then I look back at that moment last season, and that's where my memory takes me to, Mappy. I think we're all entitled to say, when you look at Nir Bitton, he's done pretty well out of Celtic, I would say. Jonathan, am I being overly harsh?
I wouldn't say so. No, I mean I can understand why some people might. Well, there you go. 2002 to 2007. I knew it was a saying. I knew Phil would be in the comments backing that up. But yeah, I mean, in terms of where they were at, I don't think you're being overly harsh on Bitton at all. I think with Nir Bitton, you're looking at it and you're thinking there's not really anything there, as I say, that stands out to me from him. And you're probably right that the things that do stand out for me aren't good memories. You've got the eye poke. I remember the game at Ibrox a couple of years ago, where rugby tackles the player to the ground. I think it was the season before Lennon's last season, and gets himself sent off, and just one of the most stupid tackles he's ever made. He could have been sent off at Hearts. In the game at Tynecastle, where we ended up just scrambling a 2-1 win. He's on a book and then he puts his arm towards the ball and gets away with it a wee bit. So there certainly is mistakes in him. And I think, you know, even going further back, one of the other ones I always remember is actually the game against Rangers in 2016, the Scottish Cup semi-final, where he chucked it. And that's what I always remember with him. And even now, I still remember he got injured and he chucked it. We couldn't make a sub.
Oh my God, Jonathan, I'd forgotten that. Aye, in fact, I'm not backing down. I'm doubling down now you've said that. He's a prick.
I was going quite that far, but...
No, but that's so true.
He didn't have the fight. He didn't have the fight for it. I've never felt convinced he has the fight for things like this, you know. And in terms of as well, if you're looking at the future of Celtic Football Club and what they're needing to do in the transfer window that is upcoming, they, for me, do need a strong, combative central midfielder that can do the dirty work and is a powerful player, similar to like a Victor Wanyama was previously, for us. I'm not saying we're going to get somebody of that ilk again. That would be very nice, but probably quite hard to find a player of that magnitude out there. But, you know, if you're looking at it and you're looking at Nir Bitton, what is he bringing to the table for me?
It's pathetic, Jonathan, as well. We're talking about a guy with 10 years. We're talking about one of his years during those 10. David Kelly wants to call it pathetic. Nonsense, mate.
I think if you're looking back over his
Is it
10 years,
pathetic?
we're at the end of his time at Celtic, by the looks of things. You've got to reflect over the full career, not just pick and choose the best moments. And obviously, if people want to defend Bitton, then I'll lay down the challenge for them to come back and tell me what he's done well, and then we can look at it. But from the top of my head, there's not many key moments I look at with Nir Bitton and think that was a moment where he did something that won Celtic a cup or won them a pivotal game in the league.
Totally.
Or whatever you want to do. It's a brilliant challenge, or whether that's an important goal, or whether it's just him bravely putting himself on the line for something.
Let's build David up, Jonathan, because one game 6 years ago, lads, that's reaching now. That's not what's been said, David. That's not what's been said, and I think you know it. So don't be naughty, because I love David's influence in the comments. I say it every show. He knows how to push my buttons, and this is why we get on. There's a mutual respect, Jonathan, I think. But don't be naughty to say one game 6 years ago, that's reaching now. When Jonathan said against Rangers, David, guess what? I wasn't thinking of 2016, hence my astonishment. I was thinking of his rugby tackle at the halfway line in the season that ended up finishing early, which was only 2 years ago, David. Is that too far to go back as well? Now, the poker in the eye that Conor spoke about was actually this season. So I can't decide, David, how you want to play this to make it all favourable for Nir Bitton. But there's an example from 6 years ago, this season, and now I'm bringing one to the table I actually thought Jonathan was going to bring up, which was 2 years ago. So I don't think anyone's reaching here. I think Chris Carr, who came in the comments, nailed it. He's got more bad moments that come to your mind when you first think of Nir Bitton than good ones. Rugby tackles, poker in the eyes, going off for half an injury when we had no subs left. They are three iconic moments. They're all on his watch. They're all in his 10 years. But you know what, Jonathan? Scott Brown retired. And do you know what? I've just realised. Hey, do you know what? He won the league 7 years ago. You know, he won 10 titles. We'll only count the last couple, Jonathan, because we're reaching if we start talking about winning titles 10 years ago, aren't we? Come on, David. You're better than that. You're better than that. Jonathan, we're an hour and 17 minutes in. Conor, you've been a brilliant guest as always. I think it is time for the knockout blow before we go.
Oh yeah, the knockout blow before we go. Yeah, so it was a difficult one this week. You know, there was a lot of top performances across the team. You know, you're looking at it, and I felt actually after the first 10 minutes on Sunday, there was a lot of worthy candidates for this award. But this week, I think we're going to have to go for the man I believe will be signing on permanently with Celtic in the coming weeks. I'm going to say within the next 2 weeks, this man will be an official Celtic player. Not that I've got in the no knowledge, but I'm feeling confident.
Oh, I thought you were ITK.
Aye, well, maybe I am. Maybe I've got just check my sources for a second. Yeah, definitely within the next 2 weeks, this man will be here. Thought he took his go well, assist again. You know, it has to go to Jota. I think he's just been absolutely outstanding. And for the last couple of weeks, in fairness, he's began to find his feet again. And it is him who delivered what will be remembered as the knockout blow in this league title race.
Oh, it's very good. It's very good from Jonathan Boyce. And I think he has got a point. I think Jota has decided, Jonathan, to get into heavyweight form for the title run in. Jonathan, he's decided that Celtic are going to become the undisputed champions of Scotland. I mean, it's game time to turn it on. Conor Carr, Jota has done the business. 26 goal contributions this year. At one point we were talking about who cares if we get him permanently or not. Conor, do you agree with the knockout blow of the week? I think Jonathan makes a good case for it being a beautiful George Michael lookalike Portuguese legend.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. Also that my man of the match or my knockout blow probably would have went to Callum McGregor. If if Jota didn't get those 2 assists and just, absolutely just upon himself to get, us equal in that game, because there's a thing people aren't really like. It's not saying that they're not cluing into it, but what he did to get that ball through to Maeda was really clever because he knocks it past the 2 Hearts players and he uses Kyogo as like a dummy. Because
Yes!
Kyogo's standing offside and he uses him as a dummy because he knows that Kyogo is almost standing almost in the way of the 2 Hearts players. So the ball then goes through and Jota can then run past and then tip the ball over to Maeda at the other side of the goal. So he's also, I don't think he gets a lot of the props for being very silky on the ball, a lot of skills, good, let's say good shooting, but he's had a couple of howlers this season, but really good with the ball at his feet and really good for assists and stuff like that, but he's really intelligent as well on the ball. He's really good. I mean, you just got to look back to that, that absolute peach of an assist against Ferencváros in the Europa League. Where he plays the ball right over the top.
Yep.
That was when he scored that goal went viral because of how good it was, and that was all down to Jota and Kyogo linking up. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to agree with Jonathan and just say I think it does go to Jota.
The knockout blow of the week, Jonathan. Sponsored by Jonathan. It is the knockout blow of the week is Jota. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another mobbed bus. There's 138 watching live as we bring you this broadcast live on a Monday night. The Monday Club. It is something, yet another staple show in our just ridiculous bus these days, Jonathan. When you think about it, the number of shows that we've got going is actually crazy. We don't seem to stop. A bit like Ange Postecoglou's. We do not seem to stop. And in 2 days' time, Jonathan, we play again. We go to Tannadice, we play Dundee United. Is it time we brought back the fan cam? Could we do a fan cam with a guest? I'm getting tempted by all these wee ideas going through my head right now. We'll do some post-match push. We'll then do the TNF. The TNF's now becoming the forum show. The one where me and David Lowe go on literally with nothing, no talking points, and we just feed off the comments and we reply to as many as we can because the bus is the all-inclusive bus, Jonathan, as you know. This is the bus corner that brings everyone involved, no matter what your background, colour, creed, religion, I don't care. As long as you've got a point to make about the Celtic, we're happy to discuss it. All welcome, as always. And when you're going through shit, like we've seen Les Watts describe to us tonight, like Brown Warrior was describing at one point tonight, do you know what? You're in a happy, friendly environment where you can do that. And we'll all rally around you as well. Also, we've then got after the TNF, the Double Doon show, like I was touching on earlier. Our first ever female guest on the Bhoycie bus is going to be Danielle F. I think it's a huge move. And I'm delighted for it because, see, to me, it's just another person talking about Celtic. But it's brilliant to see these barriers getting knocked down. Not that we've created them, but it's just great to see them get knocked down. Hopefully it'll encourage more female viewers to want to come on the bus as well. Then at the weekend, we're going to have to mark the show surpassing the 100 mark, Jonathan. Over 100 bus journeys since the 6th of December. Tell me that is not a hard-working bus, and I will tell you a liar. I do actually have a full-time job, I can assure you that. But we will have committed to this point, by this point, around 200 hours of content in the last 5 months. None of them getting under 500 views, I don't think yet. Majority of them averaging around the 1,000 view per show mark. It's been an incredible journey that we're on, and it's only going to get bigger and only going to get better. And hopefully, lots of you will join us for what is now called the Sunday Sesh. We might combine it with Regan's show on Sunday. It might be the 101st or the 102nd show, but we'll call it show number 100 to mark the celebration. And you two gentlemen, we've been more than welcome to join me on it as well. I just want to say a big thanks to everyone in the comments tonight. You do make the show work so much more smoother by challenging points that I'm raising, challenging points Jonathan's raising, challenging points Conor's making, who made a guest appearance on the Monday Night Club. Is there anything I've missed, lads?
No, I don't think so. I think we've kind of covered everything off. Obviously,
good, because I'm out of breath.
I was going to say, we're on to Wednesday now. It's obviously a huge game. It's a chance to win the league for the mathematicians, Russell, because we know there'll be some dorks out there that still want us to get that point before they'll surrender their league championship, shall we say. But yeah, onwards and upwards to Wednesday, and look forward to being on the show this Sunday coming.
No worries at all. Conor, anything you'd like to add?
Nope, just let's all enjoy this. Let's just take it in. Let's enjoy the party. Let's get behind the team and just get behind each other and keep each other, and just reach out to people if they need help, and just, you know, let's all just enjoy being part of the Bhoycie bus and being part of one big happy Celtic family.
That's so nice to say that. As always, if you do still have the ability to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. There is now an optional button there to press that says join. It's $1.99 a month. It's the same as what a Patreon would be. It's not mandatory. You don't have to do it. If you don't want to do it, don't worry about it. All the content will be free. But it is a brilliant way to support the channel, particularly when after May we're not going to have the sponsorship of fanboyfootball.com. So just to make ends meet, it will help the channel massively. But it's not a begging bowl. It's entirely up to you. As long as you still come in and contribute in the comments the way you are right now, that will help the bus grow and grow. Thanks again. Now, all it's left for me to say is listen to Chris Sutton, because, you know, it's embarrassing, Jonathan.
About me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.